Sponsored by EA. Hey everyone, it's AlluringSimmer here, and if you're new here, then welcome to Planet Allura, and if you've been here before, then welcome back. Today we are making a small family home. Before we get into today's video, I just want to share that I am part of the EA Creator Program, and you can use my code AlluringSimmer when purchasing Sims 4 DLC, or visit my website at AlluringSimmer.com/creator to see other eligible EA titles that you can use my code AlluringSimmer for when making purchases on the EA app. I appreciate anyone who has used my code, and I hope that you all continue to use my code in the future. It is greatly appreciated, and it helps support me as a content creator. Some other ways you can support me are by subscribing to the Tulip tier on my Patreon or subscribing to my Twitch channel, but the best way to support me is simply by watching my videos all the way through, liking, commenting, and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Also, if you didn't already know, I have a sim challenge that you all can participate in. Whether you like create a sim or building, there's something for you. I currently have the hashtag Alluring Fairy Shell, where you can download my shell on the gallery ID AlluringSimmer, and make any fairy themed build following the rules in the description. Or you can use the hashtag Alluring Fairy Cast and upload a fairy sim or enchanted creature that you've created. I may choose your sim to add to the world or your build during my Winx Let's Play, so consider to enter if you want to see your sim or your builds in my game. And this is also the final week to enter, as the due date is July 26th, so don't forget to get your submissions in as soon as possible. Now let's get into today's video, where we are building a tiny family home. I'd like to give a special thank you to my Twitch community, as they were the ones that gave me the idea for this video today to create a small family home, specifically a tiny home using the tiny living pack. However, my home didn't make it to like the micro home or tiny home tier. It's definitely a small home, so there's a couple less perks. However, I do feel like it has everything that your sim needs for their day-to-day, activities. I will say that I've definitely been getting back into my building era. I mentioned in my previous video that I've been doing a lot of creative sim, but I do think it's been fun, getting back into building and kind of practicing new techniques and seeing how my building has improved over time. I think with this build specifically, it was really fun to do because I didn't really have like an objective. I feel like I was kind of just going with the flow and seeing how it turned out, and I'm really happy with how it all looked at the end. This home is built in San Sequoia, and that's also what kind of inspired me to make it a family home, because it is 2 bedrooms. However, this could easily host at least 4 sims, I would say, because the kids' bedroom, you could just turn the desk setup into a bunk bed, and then obviously there's a room for the parents. I also feel like with this home, if you don't have like a family, you could easily convert the kids' bedroom into like an office space, a gym, just any sort of extra spare room. So I do like how versatile it is for that. However, I definitely built it keeping a family in mind in terms of the things that I added to the home. One thing that I do want to mention is that I am obsessed, and I say obsessed, with the kitchen clutter kit. I think it's my favorite kit that we've gotten so far, besides like the everyday clutter kit. I just feel like I need to use the items from that kit in every single build that I do, and I have been. So shout out to the Sims team for that kit, because it eats every time. I just like how versatile the items are from that kit, and I feel like I can find a way to make it work in every single build that I do. And I think because there's like different, swatches for the fridge, for example, with like different things on the fridge, like one gives like world traveler vibes, one gives like, someone that has like a family. I think there's another one that gives like college student vibes, if I remember correctly. And I just like that there's different aesthetics with the stickers and the magnets, but then there's also the plain swatches as well. So I just feel like you can use it over and over and over again. Another thing that I love about the kitchen clutter kit is just the fact that everything kind of makes the house feel more lived in general. Other than like maybe the living room and obviously the bedroom, I feel like the kitchen is the space that your Sims are usually in the most. I really like to have them be kind of cluttered and make it look like a home per se. So having like the sink have little dishes in it already, I feel like especially when you're taking screenshots or if you want to do storytelling, it really adds to the general vibe of the home. And I really like how the kitchen space turned out, to the point that I think it's my favorite room. I actually liked creating the space so much, I ended up expanding it later on in the build. So even though right now it feels a little cramped, especially because this is a small home and I wanted to keep it under the 100 tile tier, there isn't a lot of like counter space. I actually made sure that there was at least one counter space so that if your sim needs to cook, that they're able to do that. However, I did eventually add another counter in, so that way your sims have have multiple places to cook. I will be honest and say that I did not playtest this, so I really hope that your Sims are able to access everything. I did try to make sure that like the island wasn't actually blocking like the dishwasher or the fridge or anything like that. And I probably will go in and double check to make sure that it's not, it's not like blocking your Sims from interacting with any of the items. And if it is, I will re-upload it to the gallery to make sure that it is 100% playable for you all. I will say that creating like a tinier home makes it a little bit easier to furnish the space, as there's obviously less space to fill. I feel like it's a lot easier to plan out the floor plan and figure out like what room is going to go where and like how to manage the space. And I think you have to be very particular about your floor plan for the fact that there's not a lot of space to use. So you got to really determine like where things are going to go before you really get into it. So when I created this house, I was just like, okay, I'm going to shape this in a way that I can very clearly see where each room is. It's sort of open concept, not really, because there are like walls and I used archways to kind of make it feel more open. However, I do feel like it still doesn't feel like too cramped, at least in my opinion. You can let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? Do you think this space feels still like open and airy despite it being a smaller home, or do you think that if it was slightly bigger it would be a lot better in terms of space for your Sims? I think in terms of the color scheme for this home, I definitely went a lot more neutral with like pops of color throughout. I feel like there's a lot of like yellow, blue, green, so a lot of like cool tones in the house when I did use color, but most of it is very like shades of brown, like beige, and I think I went for that vibe just because I feel like, I don't know, I like the minimalistic look sometimes, and I feel like it makes the clutter and like the artwork and stuff stand out a lot more when I choose more colorful pieces for those things. So usually that's what I end up doing, like light wood tones or dark wood tones, and then adding the clutter to make it more colorful. As I have been in my Creative Sim era for a while, I do feel like it was really fun getting back into building a home specifically again, and also something that I know that you all will be able to download potentially and use it for your Sims. I feel like I've been doing a lot of like niche builds, and I will be continuing to do those because I do enjoy making them. However, I definitely want to do more like builds that you can use in your everyday gameplay. So if you guys have any ideas of things that you'd like to see in terms of like house styles or like community lots that you want to see me build, then leave those in the comments down below so that I can keep that in mind for future videos. And I don't know if anybody else does this when they're building, but as I said before, I did design this to be a family home, but I feel like I had a very particular family like in my head when creating it. I definitely could see this either being like a single mom with her kid, or it could be a couple and their kid. And I also initially was going to do a bunk bed instead of the loft bed, but the way that I thought about it was just like, well, if your Sim has multiple kids, you could easily swap out the desk for the bunk bed and then it would still be functional in that sense. However, I didn't want to make it seem as if you needed to have two kids in order to use this build, if that made sense. So I thought it was easier to just have the loft bed instead and give you the option to switch it out if you wanted to. Something else that I wanted to create the impression of when making this build was that at least one of the parents, or if it is a single parent, is still in like university. And I had like the university textbooks, I have like the study stacks, which are clearly not for the child because they have their own like desk space with all the stuff that they need on there. So I really wanted to like communicate it through the clutter pieces that I chose that the parents were still in school or at least studying for something. So if you have a Sim that's like in university that has kids, or maybe you want to have a Sim that's like, if you have like the nursing school mod or anything like that and they're studying while, taking care of their family, I feel like this would be the perfect build for you. I also think that because this is a smaller home, it definitely gives the vibe of something that like you can kind of expand in the future, or it's like a starter home that you can eventually grow from. It's definitely not a starter home in terms of the price of it. I think it's like 59,000 simoleons or something like that. So it's definitely a Sim that's already been sort of developed in their career a little bit. I feel like in the case if you were to have like two parents and like a kid, they could easily have like one Sim who is working while the other Sim is in school. I'm over here creating a whole storyline for your Sim, but this is just an idea. If you download it and you don't know what Sims to make for it, that's something you could potentially do as the storyline. I also really had fun doing like the backyard space space. I sort of purposely made it small because I do not like landscaping or furnishing backyards. I don't know why, but outdoor spaces scare me. And I'm like, I would just prefer if I could just place down the lot, do the interior, and then just forget about the exterior altogether. However, if I'm gonna upload something to the gallery for you guys to use, I don't want to make it seem unfinished. So I definitely put in the effort to landscape a little bit and also add some stuff in the backyard later on, so that way your Sims are able to like get the most out of the space that they have. Now, when I'm really thinking about it, I do remember thinking about placing down a trash bin, and I feel like I vaguely remember doing that, but now I can't honestly remember if I did or not. There definitely is an outdoor trash bin, so your Sims will be able to throw away their stuff, but just keep in mind, if there's no indoor trash bin, I am so sorry, because I'm looking at the build now and I don't remember if I ended up adding it or not. But other than the trash bin, I do feel like I was really good about making sure that this house has all of the necessities and then some. Like, we have all the appliances your Sims need. I made sure to add a microwave too, because I feel like the microwave is like a neglected appliance. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, or maybe it's just like for me personally. I feel like whenever I make a kitchen, I'm like, there has to be a stove, there has to be a sink, there has to be a fridge, and everything else is sort of extra, even though I feel like the average home does have a microwave in it. Like, let me know in the comments down below if you don't have a microwave, like by choice, because I don't know why I never put it in a build and I literally have one. So that's just something that I've noticed. But something to keep in mind is when you don't add the microwave, that's also like you're losing out on a few recipes that your Sims can do. Like, you can't make chicken nuggets without a microwave, which honestly makes no sense to me, because I should be able to make chicken nuggets in the oven. However, that is something to keep in mind. If you want to make microwavable recipes, you can't do that unless you place down a microwave. Now, moving on to the parent space, this is the same thing where I wanted to make sure that each room had like a little splash of color. So I did a lot of like accent walls. Yellows, pinks, blues, and greens tended to be the accent colors that I used for most of the rooms. I also made sure that they had a little clock, so if you want to set an alarm for your Sims, make sure that they get to work or get to university on time, then I made sure that your Sims would be prepared. I also feel like going into this build without like a, concrete plan of the vibe of the house that I was going to do made it a lot more fun to build, because I think the kitchen and like the living room area kind of set the vibe for the rest of the house. And I really like this like sort of minimalistic aesthetic while still having clutter, having the pops of color throughout, and then also making the space like feel lived in, if that makes sense, because I wanted to make it clear that like this is a family, they have like a young kid, and I tried to put like little things that hinted towards the kids like throughout the house, not just in the kids' bedroom. And I feel like it really gives the vibe that like this is a cohesive sort of, I feel like no matter what, anytime I do a build, like there's always hindsight where I'm just like, oh, I wish I would have added this thing, I wish I would have put this. One thing that I for sure wish I would have added was like, a high school diploma or something like that, kind of show that one of the parents had graduated. Maybe I should have put two to show that they had graduated high school, but like maybe still indicate that like one is still in school, or something to show that like this family is educated, okay? They're trying to get that degree so they can get the money to support their family, their growing family, because at this point their kid is a child with the way that I've designed the home. But you could easily convert that room not only just into an office or a gym or some sort of other hobby room, but you could also convert it into a nursery or a room for a teenager. Like, I feel like having that extra bedroom just makes, endless possibilities for your Sim household. And the bathroom, I kept it simple, kept it cute. I do feel like anytime I have a child in the household, I need to make sure, or at least I would say like toddler and younger, I always make sure that there is a bath and a shower. I feel like showers are nice because they're faster than taking a bath, but obviously you need a bath to take care of like toddlers and under. However, in this case, I guess the kid is a child, but I do just really like having the option to take a bath. And I feel like if you have spa day, like you understand the vibe. Like, I love giving my Sim like a nice muscle relaxing soak, or like do like the rose petal bath. Like, it's always fun to have that be like a calming way for them to relax after a day at work or in university. And as we get into the kids room, I really wanted to show off that this child is like kind of into space. You'll see later on with the backyard, I even added like a telescope to show like their interest in that hobby. They have like the space setting, little paintings on the bed, or the little drawings on the bed of like an alien and like the sun and the rainbow. I think it looks so cute. And And I also gave them a tablet instead of like a laptop or computer. I feel like that kind of shows their age. It's giving like they have a little iPad, maybe their parents got them a computer, not a computer, but a keyboard so that they would be able to use it sort of like a laptop, but they're still a little young, so they don't have a full-on laptop or computer quite yet. So I hope that was like really established with the way that I created base. I also made the effort to add this item from, I think, kids room stuff, maybe toddler stuff. I honestly can't remember. But the little like Lego table, I feel like I always forget that it exists. And then anytime I add it, it's always when I have toddlers, but in order for toddlers to use it, like they need to have the parents come and like set it up for them first. So I like that I gave this to a child because I think they're able to like manage it and use it on their own, and it's just like a cute little activity for them to do. And now we're getting into the backyard space where I wanted to make sure that there was room for them to like play outdoors and hang out outdoors as well. So there's like going to be a little barbecue, there's a little picnic table later on. I added a space for your Sims to do some gardening, you know, if the parents want to get into that in their free time, or if the kid even wants to get into gardening later on. But there's not too much going on back here, and we're also getting closer to the end of the build, so be sure to stay tuned until the end for screenshots. It is available on the gallery ID AlluringSimmer, so check it out, download it, use it for your Sims, and feel free to take pictures and tag me on X or Blue Sky at AlluringSimmer if you do end up using this build. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this if you enjoyed, comment down below what you think, and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye everyone.